This video discusses the 3 pre-hearing forms that are sent to the claimant from the Social Security office. These forms are sent in order to gather the most up-to-date medical information from the claimant. The attorney's office also will get a copy of these forms. What we here at the Khaki Law Firm do is send a copy of all these forms along with a letter to the client stating that we would like the client to fill out the forms and then return them to us as soon as possible instead of returning them to the Social Security office. The reason for that is because this allows us an opportunity to cross-reference what the medical file has on record with the Social Security office versus what the claimant has provided as the most up-to-date information. This will allow us to see any gaps and give us the opportunity to request medical records to fill those gaps and get them to the Social Security office before the hearing. This is why it is important to get these filled out as soon as possible. The closer to the hearing it is that these are filled out, the harder it is to fill those gaps. So we want as much time as possible. The Social Security office does try and request these pretty early, and they will continue to send them out several times with other letters that may go out until they get the forms back. So you may see these more times than not, but that is usually as a result of them just not having the completed forms. I do want you to know that here at the Khaki Law Firm, once we do receive those forms and have reviewed them, we'll submit them for the client, and we will do that as quickly as possible so that the Social Security office does get the forms in a timely manner. So like I said, there are 3 forms. The first one is the work history report. The other one is the Claimants Recent Medical Treatment. And the third one is the Claimants Medications. I'm going to go over the last 2 forms. I'm not going to go over the work history report because we do have a separate video that goes into more detail with this form. The Claimants Recent Medical Treatment form. Section A will already be completed when you receive it. It will have your name, your social, and I want you to note here that it says the last time we brought your case up to date was, and they'll have a date here. This will become relevant as to why it's important because it will be referenced in the below questions. First question is, have you been treated or examined by a doctor other than a doctor at a hospital since the above date? Obviously, if it's a yes, then you mark yes, and if it's a no, you mark no. What I want you to do is to list the doctor's name, the facility that the doctor works at, if it's not just if the practice has a different name, and the address and the telephone number. And lastly, the date that you were seen or the dates that you were seen. And you're going to do that for each doctor that you've gone to since this above date up here. If you run out of room, it is okay to get another piece of paper and write or type on that, or make a copy of this and fill that out. We want to make sure they have all the information. The second question is, what have these doctors told you about your condition? Here you're going to list specifically what they say. You're not going to list same as what my other doctor said or the same diagnosis. You need to list specifically what they say because that will just provide more support if it is the same thing that other doctors have said as well. So be specific. Number 3 is, have you been hospitalized since the above date? Again, if you have, you'll type yes, and if you haven't, you'll type no. Again, make sure you're being specific. Name of hospital, you want the complete address, why you were hospitalized, and the type of treatment that you received. Once you have completed all of that, you will then go on to the next form, which is the claimant's medication. Again, this top portion will be filled out with your name and your social, as well as the date that it was last brought up to date. I do want to note here just for a moment that this is the last time your case was brought up to date by the Social Security office, not by our firm. Our firm, we're going to check in with you regularly, make sure we have the most up-to-date medical information. We're going to submit whatever info that we need to the Social Security office. So the last time that it was brought up to date by the SSA, maybe farther back in the past than when you last spoke with your paralegal or legal assistant. That doesn't mean that we haven't submitted that stuff. It just means it maybe has not been processed yet. Moving on to section B, this is going to be completed by you. You're going to list specifics again, the name of the medication and the dosage, the date it was first prescribed, the daily amount taken, the reason for the medication, and the name of the physician that prescribed it. Most of this information can be found on your prescription container. But if you're not sure, as it says up here, check with your pharmacist or check with your doctor's office. You want to list everything that you take. And let me repeat that. You want to list everything you're presently taking. Not list everything that you have taken or have been prescribed in the past, but what you are presently on. Below that, you're going to list any non-prescription medications you're taking, such as Advil, ibuprofen, aspirin, anything that's over the counter. You're going to list it here, and you're going to list why you are taking them as well. And if your doctor recommended that you take it, then you can list that here as well. That's okay. If you run out of room, then the same as the last form, get another piece of paper, make a copy of this, and type or write out your additional medications. Once you've done that, then return it to, if you are a client of the CACI Law Firm, you're going to return it to us as soon as possible. If you're not, then you'll return it to the Social Security office as soon as possible. And just to repeat, once we here at the firm have received these forms, we're going to do our cross-reference. If we find any gaps, we're going to make sure they get filled by requesting the appropriate medical records, and we're going to submit these forms for you as soon as possible. And that is it on these forms.